Okay. All right, everyone. Welcome back to. I'm gonna just refer to this as the Consistency Podcast, just because we've definitely been consistent over the past couple of years at this point. So I think we've officially earned that title. We're gonna kind of just be freestyling today, so that's why we're just referring to it as the Consistency Podcast today. But
For those people, not to cut you off, for
mhm.
those people who don't know what that term means, freestyle, what does that actually mean?
Means that we just kind
Hip
of
hop
we just going off the dome of freestyle. We're gonna have discussions about whatever we really feel like talking about today. We don't really have a specific topic that we're gonna be hitting on. We're just gonna be kind of shooting the breeze. So how's well, first let's see how's 2026 been for you so far, Frank.
Yeah, so 2026, first of all, it's going quickly. I
It is.
can't believe that we're almost out of February. We're, well, at least in the metro Atlanta area, I can't speak for up north because I heard it's different there, but temperature wise, it seems like we're starting to move away from winter here in metro Atlanta. And again, I'm just speaking for us. I know other parts of the country is not necessarily that way.
Mm-hmm.
And in so many ways, this year is poised to be different in so many ways. And I was talking to a good friend of mine, and what I'm finding is that a lot of times things are coming out to be sort of opposite from what I may have predicted. And the fact that it may be a bit obtuse, it hasn't been a negative thing. It's been a matter of learning to ride the waves.
Mm-hmm.
Also, one of the things that I've been really fascinated about, I think this year, more than ever in recent history, I've watched quite a bit of Winter Olympics. And I'm always fascinated by those athletes because they spend at least 4 years preparing for if if they do one event, if the person does one event, they might spend 4 years preparing for less than a minute on the world stage. Now, suffice it to say, they're on the world stage. I realize that not every Olympic event is televised. I get that, but there's a lot of lessons that could be learned from those athletes about commitment and consistency
Mm-hmm.
because for the Winter Olympics, we're talking about going out in, for some of them, frostbite weather conditions and padding up and getting all the equipment on and doing that several times a day or working out several times a day and not really have much of a life outside of that
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of these athletes. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned about commitment, consistency, just from those athletes. And something I came across recently, her last name I think is Williams. I can't remember her first name right now. I can't remember if I talked about this on another episode. She was a summer Olympic athlete, and after she had successfully won gold, 10 years later, she was, for all extent and purposes, she was broke. And so there's all kinds of there's all kinds of lessons to be learned about how to move forward after the applause stops, and after the flood of money becomes a trickle for
Mm,
some people. Because you imagine that for some of these athletes, they've got the endorsements, especially if they become gold medalists at, in the high profile sports like track. They get the endorsements and then they get the speaking opportunities immediately after. But without the proper coaching and preparation, like this young lady that I'm referring to, she ended up as a intern for a company 10 years later,
mm.
making next to nothing after being on top of the world as an Olympic athlete. So there's so many different sides to that coin. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the Olympics, it's one of those things where, you get a lot of honor from participating, but, financial stability, especially with it being an event that only occurs every couple of years, um, it's very difficult to. I actually heard of someone who was like top in one of the Olympic, and they were like, yeah, we don't really make that much from it, so it is really just more about the honor when it comes to that. But I'm not exactly sure. I forgot how much he said he had made, or he was making for it and what event he was doing, but it wasn't necessarily significant. But it gave him the opportunity to travel the world and see other things and do other things. So I mean, he's fine. But
And you know, to the point that you just made, I wonder how many people pass up an opportunity like that because they're not sure about where it will land them financially. But yet, all the intangibles, like being able to travel, most people that you talk to, I would say particularly women, if you ask them what are the top 3 to 5 things that they're interested in doing, travel is always one of the top things to do.
mm-hmm.
And yet, I wonder how many times people pass up opportunities that might afford them to do exactly some of the things they really want to do, but the financial reward doesn't seem to be there right off.
Well, I would say I think a lot of that's kind of still in the college realm, or like people who would be in of college age or just getting out of college, who people who participate in the Olympics. So at that point there's not necessarily a huge career that they're walking away from, so it's like the opportunity cost there probably isn't that high. So I don't think too many people turn down, well, not that I know of. I don't know too many people who are in the Olympics, but I doubt, I don't see it being turned down for financial reasons, because I think they're you know compensated in other ways, with the endorsements and stuff like that. So I think that that's still more of a setup for future career if handled correctly than not participating, because it really depends on, like, yeah, if you have a position at like a Fortune 500 company where you can be a very top ranking person there, then yeah, maybe that might be something that you would want to pass up the Olympics for. But even then, I think you gotta kind of answer your personal calling. Like, I don't think people would pass up the chance to be on an NBA G League team to work in an office for $40,000 a year or something like that. So I think it's all circumstantial when it comes to that.
Yeah, you raise a good point. Uh, do you find that, and this is, part of what we try to do in this space is address some of the tension intergenerationally.
Mm,
Now, of course, in the in the 80s and the 90s, when I guess you could say I was coming of age, internships was still a thing. And in fact, the guy who folks would like to cancel these days, Diddy. Speaking of canceling, I was shocked that I was somewhere recently. Um, on Saturday, I was somewhere and actually heard the one of the Pied Piper songs being played publicly. So I don't know
mm,
if that means that the tide is turning for him or not. But if you remember, Diddy had this show Making the Band,
mm-hmm.
and for me, I it was something that I did watch, and I thought it was interesting because it kind of highlighted some of the work that some artists or people who want to really plug into the industry has to has to be willing to put in before they should expect to hit stardom. And I wonder if because people can produce their own music now and go on YouTube and hope that somebody hear them or go viral, I wonder if people are less willing to do follow that path to make the band as such today because they feel like they can do it on their own. What are your thoughts? I mean, you think about what you do with We the Sauce and being connected to artists. What are your thoughts on
Well, are you referring to like actually coming together and making a band, or like the intern, like some of the hazing they were going through in the show?
that? So what I'm talking about is those people who were a part of the show, they were trying to make the band and ultimately they were trying to make it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how important it was to them individually about the other members of the band per se.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what was clearly important to them was
Their spot.
them being able to be successful in the music industry.
Mm-hmm.
And the band was a step in that direction. So my question has more to do with whether or not what was more prominent 30 years ago for somebody to, you know, work their way up as such, as opposed to now a person saying, you know what, I don't really have to go that route because thanks to YouTube, I can put my own music out on my own channel.
Mm-hmm.
And if I go viral, then next thing you know, I'm on commercials and I'm at the Grammys like some of these other artists who didn't go through a traditional record company.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing today is, before it would have been a record label who you had to impress. Now today you have to impress these algorithms for social media, for YouTube. So people are still having to put in the work, or some artists, they have to get on stream every day in order for people to be familiar with who they are and familiar with their brand. So they're, and sometimes that involves them making content that they probably wouldn't want to make initially.
Like what? Like what? Give it because now and what you're saying is really important because again, I often feel like, and by the way, I don't know that this sentiment is necessarily connected to people trying to make it in any particular age bracket, because now people, whether they're 22 or 42, they're aware of these technological tools,
Mm.
and they may feel like, okay, if I put this video up and if this video is good, if I make this video really good, it's going to go viral. And I wonder if people really understand that it's not that simple. It's more, like you said, it's more work to it. The work may look different than it did in the past, but it's still work. So what I want you to talk a little bit about is, what is that work? What is the thing? What are those things that people would have to do today? Some of which, as you said, they might not be really interested in doing, but nonetheless is a part of that work.
Yeah, I think today it's definitely about identifying who your audience is first. So once you identify who your audience is, whether you're trying to give them music or whether you're trying to just entertain them or even educate them, it's then finding out what style of content best suits what your objective is. So when it comes to making music, some people may not have a buzz just from one song. They may have to take people into the process of how they're creating the song, or they might have to make the song live on stream for people to buy into it or be interested in the music that they're making. And kind of without that aspect, what you can see, like on TikTok, a song can go viral pretty quickly, by it just being used as a sound. Like, people like it, and but that doesn't necessarily secure any financial stability for that artist. Media, and sometimes it does give them a very quick payout, but for the sustainability, if you know it's only as good as long as it's viral. So once it's ran its course and is no longer viral anymore, when it's a TikTok sound, people don't necessarily associate a face to the sound that they're using. So you can get millions of, hundreds of millions of views on a song and still nobody even has a clue who you are. There's songs that go viral on TikTok from, very big artists, and people don't even know that it's their song until months and years later. Like, oh, I didn't know that was this person so and so who made this quick snippet that I use every day, something like that. So, in those particular situations, um, people need to then strike while the iron's hot. So say you have a song that's going viral, and now you have people who are coming to your TikTok page, just as an example. So now you need something. If you're not consistently putting out new music, or if you're not consistently keeping those new followers engaged, then you start to lose them. And so now you have to think of a creative way to, and that may be going live, that may be, showing them your process or your day to day. Some people then start to stream and just show what their life looks like on a daily basis. But still, after a while, you can get burnt out from that, because now it's no longer you just sharing the song you made. Now you have to share what you were eating that morning, or what you what you like to wear when you go out somewhere. So it just, you start to sign up for a lot more than you would initially did. And with that, when you start to look at things averaging out, so you might have made $1 million from one song, but now you have to make all this extra content that may not be paying, that will probably is not paying out $1 million. So realistically, that $1 million is now getting split up every time you have to do another video to keep people engaged. It's like, okay, now you got $1 million for first you got $1 million for one song. Now it's $1 million out of 10 songs, and so it just gets broken down more and more the more that you create and release to the world.
This is good stuff, Dre. So I wonder, because of course I remember artists back in the day who, matter of fact, I was watching something. I forget the name of that show. Unsung. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've ever watched that show.
Yeah.
So I was watching an episode of Unsung featuring the Emotions,
Mm-hmm.
that group from the 70s.
Mm-hmm. Three women.
And man, when you talk about a group that had some hits, they were one of the few women featured groups that had an opportunity to tour with Earth, Wind and Fire.
Mm-hmm.
But their contract with the record company was jacked up, and they really didn't see any paper.
Mm-hmm.
But again, going back to the beginning of our conversation, I don't know, I would love to read a study to compare pound for pound, so to speak, which artists as a aggregate are faring better. Because what's clear is that you can't avoid the work. But then the artist who does it him or herself, yes, this person has been able to eliminate the record company and eliminate that bad contract. But then are they able to actualize the kind of lifestyle that those artists accrued, even though they weren't seeing the paper? And then how many of the artists who decide to do it on their own actually have done enough work to understand what to do to authentically do it on their own so that they end up better off? Because what part of what it seems like the goal would be is for these new artists to position themselves in such a way that they, they are in a better position than those people from yesteryear who just got taken advantage of. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they really are ending up in a better position financially.
Well, the difference there is, I think, back in the day, if you were in front of anybody, like you're in front of a lot of people, today you can be, and you would kind of stay there, especially if you got there off of your talent. Like, a record label would put you in front of an audience that would, be wanting to hear more from you. Today, a lot of the artists, they might get in front of a million people real quick, but then there's no guarantee that they'll get back in front of those million people, regardless of how, if they can even make another viral hit, or something else that goes viral, but if now it's not viral for the same thing, people aren't making that association that, oh, okay, this is that person who made this song, or um that they're not necessarily building a brand. So I think, although people are independent and getting in front of different people, when it comes to um, the sustainability of being known, that's where they're missing some of the help from the record labels when it comes to um, just staying relevant. And a lot of people don't even recognize how much a record label does do in some cases, in some situations where it really works. But yeah, being independent is already difficult. And so now, if you're trying to be independent and learn the music business, a lot of these people are young ages, so they don't really, know about reinvesting. So it's like, yeah, if you get $1 million from something going viral, it's like now a lot of people might not have the discipline to use that money and reinvest it back into themselves, into marketing, into getting better equipment to make higher quality music. They're just using that as their personal money, and then those, and in their mind they're like, well, if I could do it once, I could do it again. And sometimes that second time never comes back, or especially if they do it twice, then they're like, oh well, I can do this forever. And then they do it 2 or 3 more times, and then they increase their lifestyle to a point to where now if they're not going viral, then they can no longer support it is what they're doing. So I think that's one of the modern day traps that a lot of people fall into, kind of getting tricked into thinking that it's that they kind of have freedom, but then they're also limited by whichever platform helped propel them to stardom. So it's like, you can, still keeping on TikTok as the example, you can do something really good on TikTok. You can go viral, gain a good following. You could start doing lives, but then you can also get banned from the platform, or you can get a copyright restriction on YouTube, and now your main source of income is now no longer there, or it's suspended for a period of time, and now you have to figure out how you're going to pivot.
Those are some really good points. And as we've discussed before, how this all came about had to do with your desire to provide a platform for artists and otherwise to come on and share music, or share what they were interested in sharing with the community. And I think that having that kind of ethic at the outset is a big part of the success that we've had so far. Because when you came to me with the idea of, because originally when you came to me with the idea of putting some information out there, you were more so making the platform available. But I knew that it would be better with someone. And I can tell you, as someone that has had the opportunity to coach for a while, there are a lot of folks who are still stuck in neutral
Mm-hmm.
because they haven't um, they haven't decided who that person is that they would work with, or who their team would be. And usually, usually if you're going to do something sustainable, usually it's going to take at least somebody else to to help. And you raise a good point, because when it's just a team of one, you just need one or two things to jump off in the wrong direction, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that one person was it.
Yep. You don't have a team to lean on. You don't have other people to bounce ideas off. I think that not having a team is a lot of people's downfall. Because people can get wrapped up in their head, and it's hard to tell yourself that you're that you're wrong when you don't have anyone to talk to about it. Like, it's only your thoughts. Like, you came up with the idea, and in your mind that's logical, but without different perspectives, you kind of lose the ability to think outside of the box, and you know even improve, because your ideas might be great, but if they stagnate, then people eventually become uninterested in them. And so you have to always be innovative, and continue to just, you really have to seek feedback. Like, you can't really get far without any feedback. That's something that I learned in school, like doing projects and stuff, and then they would have the whole class, give you feedback on a project. Like you wouldn't even know how valuable some of that stuff is because you were just trying to get the project finished, and then people, and you were happy that you just got it done, and then people are showing you all these places where, oh, you could have improved this, or it would have been cool if you added this. So if you do have a product or anything that you're working on creatively, don't always just keep it to yourself. You got to make sure that other people have the ability to see it and critique it. Like, if you don't ever get critiqued, then you can't ever get improve. That's how it works in sports, how it works in arts, how it works in business. If you're not getting any feedback from how you're performing at your job, you might lose it. So
Yeah, yeah, and feedback is so important. Um, Sometimes, depending upon who your employer is, that person may not be doing a good job of volunteering feedback.
right.
So sometimes a person can assume because they're not hearing any negative feedback, then all is well. But then there's all these innuendos and circumstances that are surrounding that person's position and activity that suggests that something must be askew.
Mm,
And so the other thing is when you talk about feedback, sometimes you have to actually ask for the feedback
yeah.
because again, with some employers, they they may not even have the proper processes in place to give consistent feedback. I know when I was in the school system, you would get evaluations ever so often.
Hmm.
But then in some work environments, there is not a system to provide any kind of time regulated feedback. In fact, some people only hear feedback from their employer if something goes off the rails.
Hmm.
They get written up. Other than that, you know, the assumption is this person's still paying me. Everything must be okay
Yeah.
until
And
until you're not getting paid.
right. It's like you want to stay ahead of that, and that's why it's important to ask. It's better to ask than be left in the dark, and you know.
It's literally in the dark.
Mhm. So, some other things, I guess, just in terms of we the sauce. So I've been trying out. Remember, I think last year I was mentioning doing the Sauce Radio Karaoke. So I've been doing that at a couple of events. So the biggest addition to that is I started kind of vibe coding a karaoke Jeopardy game. Um, and so, yeah, I've been using that and it's been a lot of fun. So it's kind of more of a way where, a lot of people have an issue picking, or not necessarily issue, but they don't know what song to pick. So it's kind of creating a bunch of different game boards where you pick, you can pick like Kendrick Lamar from his album To Pimp a Butterfly, and then you do it for 500, and then you got to sing the song, and you're supposed to have judges and stuff. So I've gotten to test it out a couple of times now. It seems like it's in a really good place. It still has a couple of bugs in it and everything, but it's been real fun to get the bugs out and try it in different settings. I'm gonna demonstrate it real quick for the first. This will be the first. It's still in beta testing, but I'm gonna show the people who are on our podcast right now. So
That's pretty cool, man.
let
That's
me.
pretty cool.
I'm gonna share my screen with you as well. I'll do this entire screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I think everyone else can see mine as well. Um, so yeah, right here we have Beyonce. Actually, let me switch to another. Okay, that's a little better. I'll hide this one. I will. I'm just fixing it so people on the stream can see it a little better. So yeah, we have like artists like Beyonce, Rihanna, Brent Fayez, Migos, Wale, Kodak Black, J. Cole. So just a whole bunch of artists. Of course, got Drake, Kanye. Um, and yeah, so we basically kind of come in. Let me see, who could we do? We'll do J. Cole real quick. So just add a team real quick. And we start the game. And so it has different. Right now, one of the bugs in the game is that it's actually all randomized. So this real talks section, it might be, it could be a random song. So if I click it here, then it'll come start playing. And then yeah, so if you pass it, then you get the points. And so just having different teams. So like we had it like at a party I was at this past weekend. It was like three different teams. Each team had like three people on it. So each round somebody else would do it. But it was fun. We were playing it for a couple hours. And then it was one of the first things that I've worked on and built that people were like, oh yeah, I'm ready to play that again. I want to try. I can't wait till you add more people on it. So that's been cool, just to kind of see that. And all that has kind of been possible with just utilizing the new AI tools that I've been learning and working with. A lot of people have talked about vibe coding with AI a lot, but and I've known about it for a while, but I never fully got into it. But now that I kind of see the benefits of it, I was able to build this in really a week, and then fine tune it a little bit over the course of the past month. But before something like this, just conceptually, it would have been hard for me to really do. So I'm just trying to use all the rest of the technology to get out products like this. I'm trying to redesign the actual WeTheSauce website from the way that it is currently. So yeah, there's a lot of big things that I've just been trying to utilize AI to kind of help me with, because I see the time coming where it's gonna replace some things. AI is definitely changing things, so I'm trying to use it to my advantage to make sure I stay a little bit ahead of the game when it comes to that. So
So a couple of things. I think it would be helpful for our audience to know a little bit about your background, because you said you were able to get this up and running in about a week. I mean, I'm not sure if the average person would be able to pull that off. What would you share a little bit about your tech background, that because you might have some people that are interested in hiring you because of your tech skill set, which is uh, maybe a part of the reason why you were able to pull this together so quickly.
I think it's something that anyone really has the capability of doing, because it's more about knowing the right questions to ask. I think that's a reason I was able to do it, because I'm a little bit more well versed in what's needed. So I've been used the I guess the AI stack that I use has been Chat GPT. So I have the paid version of that one, so I don't really run into limits when it comes to asking those questions. And then Google has AI, has like AI Pro, so they had a free month trial for just to test it out. And so I was using a lot of their tools to help myself build this. They have it's called the IDE, which is a integrated development environment, and it's supposed to be like an actual AI coder. So you kind of describe to it what you're trying to build, and then it'll come out with the outline for it, and then you just have to kind of do different iterations. So it's turned coding into something that you can do in plain English just by, and I have one of the another AI that I can just talk to my computer and it'll type everything out for me. So before, you have to type out a long prompt, but now you can kind of just really talk to it like, okay, yeah, I want to build a project where this happens, and so it's really as simple as that. And you know, our new background, you can't see it right now, Frank, but the if you seen the last video how we had like a new background, I made that with AI too. So that was with a Google's VEO. That's been really cool. It gives you limits on how many videos you can actually produce. So I know you've seen a lot of AI videos probably over the past couple of months, but there's a lot of just new ways to utilize. I'm seeing a lot of YouTube videos that are AI generated completely, like very minimal human interaction now. Like they'll have cartoons representing them, and they'll have the actual AI doing a voiceover for it or something. So yeah, that's why I encourage everyone to at least get started in looking what some of the possibilities that you can do with AI, because a lot of this stuff would have been completely out of my realm of comprehension prior to it coming out. So
So let
um,
me ask you this question. Once you complete this Jeopardy, WeTheSauce Jeopardy challenge, is it something that, let's say that people, even though now that we're outside again, people are not doing as much of the virtual parties as we were when we were on lockdown.
mhm.
But let's say that we had people in totally different states and this was their best way of coming together virtually. Once you get all the kinks out, as you say, you could use this to administer a virtual party slash game. Because I know you already do DJing in your own unique way, but then you could also, I guess, you could also introduce this game as a part of that whole setup.
Yeah, that's been more of it's more, I've only done it in person so far, so I mean this is my first time kind of showcasing it online. But yeah, the idea is just to go to an event, set up some time, and then just kind of have people pick, their favorite artist, whoever they feel that they, would have the best chance at rapping or singing their song. So people would be picking Kanye, and they think that they know every Kanye song, and then one come on that is just the one that they never heard before. So it's fun like that. And
Now, when you, as time goes on, are you going to add some of the old school rappers as well? Because some of the guys that I saw on the list, I wouldn't know hardly
yeah,
any of this stuff.
yeah. So I had to. The thing is, I've had to manually add all of the artists. So I gotta make a playlist, and then take all of the YouTube links, and then kind of turn it into an object that I can like actually programmatically get to. So that's really the hardest part, and these are just some of the artists who off the top of my head, I knew had 25 songs that people would kind of know in the spaces that I'm taking it to. So, but yeah, I definitely want to add more artists in the future, and more gameplay. So just like this one's lyrics, but I would want to have some type of trivia as well, just to be more Jeopardy like in the future.
So I know that you have taught basic computer skills classes in the past. Have you actually done any AI classes at this point, or is that something that
Hmm.
people can tap into in the near future?
Yeah. So with some of my students, I've helped them just utilize AI in their everyday lives, and I've helped one of my students write her first book. So, and we were using kind of AI. She had all of her, her memories from when she was young, and just she was trying to get familiar with using the computer in general. So, she was just writing down her memories and thoughts, and so then we took that and then put it in the AI to help kind of structure it into more of a narrative or a book. And so, that's a unique way that you can kind of use AI. But I mean, you could use AI for anything. If you need business plan, just to give you some structure, because a lot of people don't know where to start when it comes to certain things, and that's the biggest thing that I've seen AI help with. Just because like for me, if I tried to build this in college, I wouldn't know. I come across the first error, and then sometimes that error would take me maybe 2 days to figure out what was initially going wrong. So now you have access to AI that can look at the problem and find the exact article or really understand what the issue might be. So the amount of time that is saved, because this is definitely something, because this is one of like an early project that you would do in program, in web development. If you were like going through a course or something, this would be like one of the first types of games that they would teach you how to make. But still, just with all of the errors, and then being able to pull video in, so just little things like that is where I would get tripped up in the past. And then you know the effort and the amount of energy that it took to get overcome some of the hurdles or some of the errors that you run into, would be demoralizing enough to where you're like, well, I can't even get the game to a playable state. And so people, I would give up after after a couple of weeks of trying to, I'd have the idea, and then your motivation for doing it just keeps going down and down as you keep running into different areas. So just having like a professional, or yeah, professional, or just like a high level understanding system that understands what it is that you're trying to do is such a big game changer. And it gives, it lowers the barrier of entry for anyone who's
Everybody to try to be up on the latest technology. But then hopefully in the near future, we'll do a whole show just putting people on game as far as some of the latest trends and technology that they should be aware of.
Mhm.
But when you share so humbly that people can do this themselves with the support of AI, first of all, I thank you for that, for for, for being candid and humble in that way. But it also says that if a person is willing to dedicate the time, there is no limits, as Master P said. There really is no limit. And earlier today, I pulled up on a particular block, and coming from around the way, as we used to like to say, I grew up, went to school with and grew up around a lot of hot boys. And I could tell that these guys that were kind of cornered to me, you know, they were they were doing some dirt of some kind. And it saddened me to a degree because when you consider what's going on in the streets right now, you know, I just feel like with the technology that exists and with the fact that everybody, for the most part, has a cell phone, if a person would just allow their mind to fathom that there was another way, because as I've said in the past, with what we're seeing happening on the governmental front and what was happening way before the people who are currently in charge, I've said on this platform that that game was over a while ago and that ship had passed. And now they've made deals with leaders of other countries to, to ship folks who get locked up, not even in the United States, ship them all the way to another country.
Mm.
So, I can't stress enough how important it is for people to tap in, man, tap into this technology and find your lane. Because there's so many different ways and lanes that a person can jump in. Everybody doesn't have to feel like they're beholden to do the same thing. Like you said, you're always going to have those people who are going to try to make beats and do stuff in music.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned gaming. A lot of dudes they like to play games. Why don't you create your own game?
Yeah, we got the ability to be. That's I mean that's one of the things that a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about AI, and I'm not a whole like AI is the savior or anything, but it's one of the tools that we have access to right now, and it's like it's only gonna get more expensive from this point. So it's just like you need to learn to utilize it in the most efficient way before it becomes unobtainable for
And that's my
people.
point. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right now, the entry level is very reasonable.
Yep.
But think about it. Think about it, Dre. When when I was a child, nobody thought about buying water. And now most people buy their water. So this technology
Yeah.
is at ground level now. Because some people listening, they're thinking like, well, I got time. Just remember, I told you, once upon a time, we did not buy water. And now we're buying water. And it's getting more and more expensive too.
It is. You gotta buy even if you're not buying a water bottle, you buying the water filters and all of that stuff. So yeah, it all gets more. The more that you're dependent on it, the more they're gonna charge for it, and I see that definitely coming with AI. I mean, they already have plans where it's $200 a month, and I couldn't even fathom what exactly that gives you access to do. I'm working with the $20 a month platform, and I mean it works really well. But I mean, I know eventually I'm the target to get me to turn into a $200 customer. So we're all customers at the end of the day. As long even though I was able to get a product out of it, everybody is a customer, and when they're subscribing to it, and it's things that if you allow it to integrate too far into your life, then you can't you stuck with that bill for the rest of your life. Now you gotta pay $200 every every month, or else your whole infrastructure falls apart or your whole business falls apart. So that's one of the goals and one of the dangers of AI right now. That they're definitely, this is the stage where they're looking to make people dependent on it, and so that's why I'm like, if you have an idea that you want to get out, now is the time to try to bring that to fruition. And just get as much value. It's more about the value that you can extract from it currently. You know, it's so much value that you can get from it that it's overwhelming to a lot of people, and then they end up doing nothing with it. So you have
Yep.
to be disciplined and know, have a goal in mind of what you want to actually use it for, even if you just get it for 1 month and say, okay, I'm so for my free trial with the Google stuff. I was like, well, I want to redo my regular website and think of something else that I could build during this time. And so this is what I've been able to come up with right now. So it makes me want to try some other things, or add to this game in some meaningful ways. But I also, since I've known the technology prior to using it, if they take away the AI assistance, I would still be able to make improvements and changes to the game. So and that's also one thing um, that I'm grateful for, because a lot of people be like, well, I guess it doesn't make sense to learn the code anymore, and to a degree I agree, but I don't feel like I wasted my time learning the code back in the day, because it's just put me that much further ahead than people who are trying to start, using AI and have no clue what programming is. So I think, like you asked, I do believe anyone that has the ability to, ask the proper prompts, but they may not be able to frame it in the same way that I frame it in, because I have a little bit more experience than the average person when it comes to the technology aspect of it.
Wow. Wow. You got, as you were talking, I was just thinking about different things. Um, yeah, different things that I probably want to do myself just because of that statement that you made about how things are going to, how things are going to change. I mean, and people should be able to see the writing on the wall. For example, NBC. NBC 30 years ago was free TV,
Mm,
but now they make a lot of us subscribe to Peacock.
mm,
And some of the stuff that used to come on free NBC, now you have to subscribe to Peacock to get it.
yep. Hmm.
So it's just, it's just a big game. And, people, we have to make sure we're positioned to be on the winning end of it. And let me say this: you mentioned how sometimes people get frustrated and whittle out. That's another reason why it's important to have, at a minimum, an accountability partner. So let's say that you haven't found your Dre, you haven't found your technology teacher yet, or you haven't found that person who you want to partner in business yet with. I was in a conversation just before this meeting with a young lady, and we were talking about a new business proposition that we're working on, and she was so excited because she has an accountability partner. She has somebody that had already been pushing her, and when I called, that tied into the push that she was already getting from her accountability partner.
Mm.
And so I hope, if nothing else, people take away that if you are trying to move like the Lone Ranger. That's harder today. I just think it's harder to do that today
Mm.
and be successful. Uh, you at a minimum you need somebody like Dre was saying that you can bounce things off of. And some people they're really struggling because they it's just them.
Yeah.
The buck stops with them. Period.
Yeah. Right about it. An hour. How you feeling? Yeah. Something else you wanted to touch
Yeah, no,
on?
I think I think we accomplished. This was a freestyle,
Mm-hmm.
and like we've been saying, the idea isn't to drag people all night. I think that over the breadth of the conversation we had, we we shared something that should be able to resonate with any age quadrant
Mm-hmm.
that would jump on here, and not just age quadrant. Any doesn't matter what color you are. I mean, it's just applicable across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm grateful that you shared this with with our audience because maybe it'll encourage some 17, 18, 19-year old to say, you know what, I like games. Let me create my own, and then next thing you know, maybe they'll be saying, hey, I wandered onto YouTube and watched this and I was inspired and thank you, We the Sauce.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a crazy game. It could be something very the thing, and that's something when it comes to app development. I think last thing, yeah, I think people used to be so enamored with app development because it was making so much money. I think it still can make decent money. It's just you're not making the new Facebook, the new Instagram. So, people don't look at it as being as cool, but it's like there's still some apps that can make a decent amount of money. Like, in this one, I have a strategy that I would try to use to monetize this in the future. So and it just started off as just a game that I wanted to add to my karaoke stuff. So, but now it has potential to do something else, and people enjoyed playing it. So I'm gonna try and take the next steps and take everyone else on the journey with how else is being built out. So this is iteration one. If you do want to try it out, it is on karaoke.wethesauce.com. So it is live for people to check it out if you want to. You can't sign in yet, but you can play all the games. I do plan on adding some more artists, adding a way that you can sign in and interact with other people. So that's some of the later iterations that will come.
Good stuff, man. Well, again, um, those people who are tuning in now, I think a good deal of people tune in later. Thank you for rocking with us, and please do share. And like anything else, it's nothing like being one of those people who was at the beginning of something amazing because this is something pretty amazing, and you can say, hey, I remember when it was just the two of them, and then you know next thing you know, Dre be all over the world, working with people, have some other people doing this in this
Hey
place.
man, yeah, we definitely trying to still take the world over one idea at a time. So gotta. I think 2026 is gonna be a big year for a lot of reasons. I'm not gonna say everything that's coming just yet, but I think I'm always in. If you put in the work, eventually something comes back out. And so no energy is lost, or energy is neither created nor destroyed. So it's all just transformed. So you put the work in, it's coming back out at some point. So if you have a project that you're working on, stay the course. It may not like this is the 10-year anniversary 2026 of We the Sauce, so you know, still, every day, and you have to have something that you're passionate about. Like, I don't know. I don't. I might have made. I might have made $100 from We the Sauce over the 10 years. So that's $10 a year. I mean, when I put in so much more to it, and it doesn't stop me from continuing to, try to, try my best, put my all into it. Cause it just, I'd rather do that than just come home and not do anything. So that gives me focus. It gives me something to look forward to. These shows give me something to look forward to. So find something that you enjoy doing, and eventually, maybe it'll be 20 years, 30 years, and then I won't have to work anymore. But I that's not necessarily my main concern. I'm not doing this to get rich. It's just something that I felt that I needed to do, and I'm just sticking to that for as long as I can. So we appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Catch us next, not next, in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Every other week, Thursday 6:30. Join the. I think we haven't completely decided, but I think we have earned the title, the Consistency Podcast. So we'll discuss that, or find a. It's
It's
about
fine.
time that we name it.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, so I think I feel like we have earned our title as the Consistency Podcast. Most people don't make it past 5 episodes, if that. So I think it's a very good feat that we've lasted over 2 years, and continue to show up and educate people and whatever it is that we feel is relevant that week. So thank you.
Hey, one of the things that you've said in the past, Dre, for those people who have something that they want to share, um, of course, we want to talk to you first. But if you've got something that you want to share and it's interesting and you think it'll help people, shoot shoot us a text or something. We'd be happy. Like I said at the beginning, we've got some, or maybe before we started rolling, I was saying to Dre that we've got several people that are interested in coming on, or with something interesting to share. So you might be one of those people, and you've been sitting on that thing to share, and it's time for you to let it go, and let it go so it can help other people. So
For sure. All right, everyone. Thank you so much, and we will see you 2 weeks.
peace.
So.